You see them everywhere. Whether they're hogging the left lane, doing 15 under the speed limit, or pulling out of Whole Foods, the Toyota Prius isn't exactly a rare sight. But now that the Prius has been around for 25 years, prices have fallen and hybrid batteries have gone bad. And this Prius was no exception. But is a 20-year-old Prius worth bringing back to life? Today, we'll answer that question. First, I'll show you what it took to get this Prius back on the road and how much it cost. Then we'll discuss what makes this car very modern, even by 2025 standards. And finally, we'll talk about whether or not you should buy one, or rather, who should buy one. Now, working at a dealership, I see Priuses come in on trade fairly often. But these were cars that were meant to be driven a lot and often aren't cared for as a result. Dented panels and trashed interiors are pretty common on these, but when this one came in, it certainly caught my eye. This was a one-owner car that was serviced at the Toyota dealer since it was new, and it only had 192,000 miles. Cosmetically, it was in really good shape and didn't have any fluid leaks of any kind, and it even had a fairly new set of Bridgestone tires on it. It even had its original valet pamphlet to show how the keyless entry system worked. It only had one major problem, and that was a dead hybrid battery, or the red triangle of death. The previous owner traded it in for $800 towards a used RAV4 hybrid, and so for a little over $1,100 with taxes and fees, it was all mine. Now, what I had always heard about these second-generation Priuses was that, other than the hybrid battery and standard engine components, there wasn't really much to go wrong with these cars because their transmissions have so few moving parts. But as we're about to discover, that's not exactly true. Now, obviously, the first thing I had to do was put in a reconditioned hybrid battery from a hybrid battery repair shop. That cost about $1,075 out the door, plus the cost of towing it there. Now, I tried to drive it there, but I wish you guys had smell-o-vision right now. I just bought this like seconds ago, literally about 2-3 minutes ago. It just popped. I just heard a really loud pop. And now I smell like sulfur. Oh, okay. I need to stop being near that. That's screwed up. Let's just say it didn't go well. Now at this point, I thought I was in the clear. The car was driving well, it seemed happy, and everything seemed to be working just fine. But unfortunately, a couple days later, we got a check engine light as well as a red triangle of death saying that the cell block 14's voltage was getting low. I found it odd, but it was the weekend, so I cleared the codes and made the drive 50 miles home with no further issue. But the day after, I tried to drive it to work, and while descending a long hill, I got the red triangle of death, and not only that, but brake lights and ABS and everything, and the car was beeping at me to pull over. So, of course, I did, and it didn't restart. Now, my initial thought was that the new hybrid battery was bad, but after talking with the hybrid battery shop, as well as doing my own research, I discovered a rather unfortunate fact. If a hybrid battery fails, and the car is driven for too long after that, the inverter will likely fail as well. Now, your inverter is essentially like your alternator. So that means that the new hybrid battery was not getting charged the whole time it was being used. The hybrid battery shop informed me that likely this fried the new battery as well. Not only that, you can't just charge the new hybrid battery, you have to open it up and balance each individual cell, which is quite labor intensive. So I was stuck. I decided to put a new inverter in and hope for the best. Now, thankfully, a used inverter from a wrecked Prius was only about $200, plus a coolant pump for that inverter was about $25 extra. That part fails somewhat regularly, so I went ahead and did it. Both parts took about 4 hours to install, but unfortunately, even after adding 2 jump packs, the car still wouldn't start. So it was back to the hybrid battery shop for hybrid battery number 2. But thankfully, they worked with me on the price a bit and lowered it down to $700. Very nervously, we started to drive the car again, and it was fine for about 7,000 miles. Now, the next issue wasn't as big of a deal, but it still made the car equally undrivable, and it all comes down to this plastic piece right here. For the 2004 and 2005 model year Priuses, a water leak can develop between the 2 pieces of the windshield cowl. Now, ordinarily, this is not that big of a deal, but because the Prius windshield is so far forward, water was leaking down directly on the engine, past the ignition coils, into the spark plug tubes. And when I pulled the ignition coils out, this is what the spark plug tubes looked like. Yeah, not good. But after a new set of ignition coils and spark plugs to the tune of about $90, Everything's been fine since then. We've put about 10,000 miles on this car and gotten about 40 mpg the whole time. Now, the only other issue that we've had is a brake light going out. But since the brake lights are LEDs in these cars, that means that you have to replace the whole taillight assembly. Thankfully, though, that was only about $60. Now, all in all, after purchasing and repairing this car, we've got about $3,400 into it, and it's worth roughly $4,400. But other than the common problems that I've experienced, here are a few more in short order. The LED headlights can fail. The hatch release panel is flimsy and can break off, this one once too soon. The digital dash can stop working entirely, and the one issue I really hope doesn't happen to me, the ABS module can fail. One of those reconditioned is a few $100s, but it's quite a bit of labor to install. So is it true that there isn't much to go wrong on these cars? No, absolutely not. But do I regret buying this car after about 10,000 miles of ownership? Also no. Because frankly, there aren't any cars in this price range that do as much as this car does. Now, standard Prius features are push-button start, automatic climate control, touchscreen infotainment, ABS, traction control, and steering wheel controls for not only the radio, but also the climate control. However, this particular Prius is the fully loaded Package 6 model, which gets you smart keyless entry, curtain airbags, auto-dimming rear-view mirror, HomeLink, LED headlights, a 9-speaker JBL audio system, and get this, a voice-activated navigation system with Bluetooth calling in 2005. Now, as a car enthusiast, the coolest feature about this car to me is its engineering. It's really cool to watch on screen how the engine, electric motor, hybrid battery, and the wheels all work together to keep the car moving and the hybrid battery charged. Plus, this car is old enough now, the infotainment doesn't feel dated, it feels vintage. You can really see the effort that Toyota put in everywhere you look in this car. It's well designed, well executed, and a well-built vehicle. Pair that up with all the modern bells and whistles, and not only is this an interesting car to drive, but a really modern one as well. Now, all of those bells and whistles alone added $5,245 to the cost of this car back in '05. Now combine that with a base price of $21,275, and this very car cost $26,520 all the way back then. Now, adjusting for inflation, that is almost $45,000 in today's money. And considering that a top trim Corolla with the same year and mileage is only about 10% less than this car nowadays, Prius starts to look like a real bargain. But should you buy one? Well, it depends. If you are mechanically inclined and comfortable working with high voltage, then yes, absolutely, buy a Prius with a bad hybrid battery. Bad hybrid battery packs can often be reconditioned for a lot cheaper than replacement, and because there are so many of these cars, parts are cheap and available. But if you're missing one or both of those traits, you might want to look for a different model of car. I'd like to emphasize here that the only work I didn't do myself to this car was replacing the hybrid battery packs, so those prices I listed would be a lot worse without that. But if you do decide to go for an older Prius, at least you know the common problems to look out for. Thank y'all so much for watching. I really hope you learned something new about these really cool cars. I'll catch you in the next one. Well, I just got done filming and tried to push the mirror in, and I guess mirrors disintegrating is also a common problem.